I'd like to call to order the City Council Workshop meeting for January 3rd. If we could have a roll call.
Anderson,
Here.
Baldwin,
Here.
Dean,
Here.
Gardner, Muncy,
Here.
Stanton,
Here.
White.
Here.
You have a quorum.
And Russ did text me that he is running a little bit late because of a work obligation, so he'll be joining us shortly.
Yep.
Any agenda changes? No. Any guest speakers for today? Public comment on agenda items only. Is there anyone in the room? Anyone online today? Jamie, anybody's hand raised?
No, that's.
Okay, that's it. Great. Okay, so we'll move on to our discussion items. 6A is our audit presentation. Ryan, do you want to set this one up?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, we do have the pleasure of having the auditor with us this evening, this afternoon. Mr. Stanislawski is here as well. Peter, do you want to just do a brief introduction, please?
This is Ken, the lead auditor from Berthum and Company. He's done our audit numerous years, and he's here tonight. Any questions for the council about the audit? So I'm going to turn it over to Ken. Can you hear us, Ken?
Yes, Peter, thank you very much. As Peter said, I'm Ken Berthum with Berthum and Company. And I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to present the financial statement audit for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2023. The audit work again this year went very smooth. We encountered no difficulties, problems, or differences. We received excellent help and cooperation from the city staff, especially Treasurer Peter Stanislawski. And in our report, we have no issues or report on internal control problems, none of that. We found that the city bookkeeping is in excellent shape and was ready for audit. So when we did our audit work, after we got done with that, we were satisfied that we were able to issue the opinion on the financial statements that you see in the booklet on page 1 and 2. This is the standard unmodified opinion, which is the best possible opinion. The audit has been submitted to the state of Michigan, which the audit was due before 12/31, so we got that accomplished well ahead of schedule again this year. No problems there. So I'd like to just briefly run through the report. I see we have it up on the computer to page 7, if you would. This is part of the management discussion and analysis. And it's just a required supplemental information. Actually, it's not the official financial statement. Exactly. It's a supplemental, required supplemental. Here we see on page, on page 7 of that MD&A. Going ahead there. I see page, that's okay right there. You had it, I think. Right there. Okay. Here you see this is a condensed statement of activities. Full accrual basis of accounting is used for this. And we're comparing 2023 revenues and expenses with 2022. Here we saw that the total net position for the year increased down there towards the bottom, first column in the bottom, 755,000, 272,000. That's a change in net position that was positive, which is a good trend. The prior year was even more than that. 1,165,000 increase in net position. That means that you have assets that exceeded the liabilities by that much of an increase for the year. We saw that the property tax revenues there for the current year came in at about 2,812,000 compared to 2,668,000 the prior year. That was an increase of about 143,000 or about 6% for the year. The increase was mainly due to increase in taxable SEV of properties in the city. Tax millage rates, of course, were not changed, had been increased. We also saw that investment earnings were substantially higher this year. You see it there at, you see a number $304,240 for investment earnings compared to only $15,349 the prior year. So that was a good return there. Okay, now moving ahead to page 10.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question quickly before we move on?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
The general government expenses went up 30%. What is that related to primarily? Is
Well-
Public Works?
Yeah, well, that, yeah, that's a total of the, you have your funds. And then I guess if you looked at, you'd have to look at the expenses in, say, the general fund over on page 15. Compared to the prior year expenses, there was, I think we saw, I don't know the answer to that question exactly without looking at a bunch of details, but.
I can bother Peter for it. It's fine. If you knew it off the top of your head, that would be great. If not, I'm sure Peter has the details, so I can.
Yeah,
let
we
him-
did,
Fine.
yeah, we did see it, looking at page 15 compared to this year, compared to the prior year, I saw that there was about 250,000 more expense in the category of general government. And then there's, more detail to support that, but I think I don't know, you did have substantial legal fees this year. That came at the total for the attorney came in at about 629,000. And that shows up in the budget report back in the report on page 43. But I think that was, I don't have the number. Let's see, the prior year was more, yeah, I know.
And forgive us, this is our first time seeing the financial statements, so
Okay. Yeah.
they're generating a lot of questions for me, but I can always ask Peter if it's
Okay.
not something that's top of
Yeah,
mind.
you can look into that one, and Peter could easily, I think, explain that by just
Okay.
looking at the general fund budget reports and so forth. But there was that increase in the legal. I think that was part of it. Okay. The other thing about the statement of, when we're looking at a full accrual basis statement of expenses, that includes any change in the pension obligation, and that there's an entry that comes into play because of that, which could affect that as well. Okay, on the government-wide statement. Okay, yeah. So I was moving ahead on to page 10. First, here we have the statement of net position. This is a full accrual basis accounting statement. It's really a big picture where the city stood on June 30 in terms of assets and liabilities. I think here we see a very healthy situation for the city. You had approximately 10,500,000 held in cash and investments right there at the top. You see those numbers? The investments included about 6.9 million that was invested with Michigan Class. And that's a cooperative fund that the state has set up. It allows the city to safely invest in there. And you're earning some really good interest now with interest rates being up. And we saw that earlier. You earned about 300,000 of the interest last year. The unrestricted net position down towards the bottom, you see that number there, it's 6,923,000. That's a key number when looking at financial condition. It's a positive number. Some cities have negative there because they have unfunded pension. In your case, you don't have that situation at all, not even close. That net position unrestricted came in about 150,000 higher than the prior year. So the trend was up. And we also have, we see their restricted net position. You had approximately 3.1 million of net position that was available for investment in the streets. Okay. And then moving ahead to page 12. Here we have the governmental funds. Governmental funds balance sheet on page 12. Okay, this is prepared on a modified accrual method of accounting, which means the focus here is really just what you have in terms of current assets and current liabilities. Okay, so it doesn't include those capital assets or any long-term debt or pension. It's just what you have current. And again, this balance sheets here reflect a very healthy condition for the city on June 30. As you can see, the general fund balance came in at approximately $5,057,000. This is healthy when you compare it to the fact that your annual expenditure budget is about 3.5 million. So you have enough money basically in there to cover the next year's expenses and then some. Okay, that's how to look at that. On page 15, moving ahead to page 15, here we have a continuation of the governmental funds. This is the statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the year. The general fund reported revenues of $3,436,000 approximately. Expenses of $3,341,000. So the change or increase in net position was about $94,000 for last year. Okay, so the city is doing a good job matching up expenditures to its available revenues for the year. And then finally, moving ahead to page 18. Here we have a statement of net position for a proprietary type fund, which is your internal service fund or motor pool fund. And that fund is separate from the general fund, as you know, and that fund also shows a very good financial condition with an unrestricted net position there of about $776,000. And that money would be available to invest in new equipment, that type of thing that you need. Okay, so in conclusion, I again thank you for allowing Berthium and Company to serve as city auditors, and I welcome any further questions or comments.
Does anyone have any questions at this time?
I have one. In the letter to the council, you said there were 3 adjusting journal entries. I'd be curious to know the nature and an approximate amount of those.
Oh, okay, sure. I have the file right here, and I'm just taking a minute to take a look here. Three journal entries, by the way, is very good. Considering compared to other places we've been and do. Sometimes we have 30 journal entries, but here the entry. Okay, we had entry number 1 was to record a due from an other governmental unit of $16,571. That was a receivable. That's a receivable, so that's an asset that hadn't been on the books.
I don't need that kind of detail. I'm sorry. I was just curious to the nature, like in $16,000 certainly isn't a huge amount, but yeah, I'm just curious to the nature of them.
Okay, the number 2 entry was an entry for $1,422 to adjust the receivable from state revenue sharing. Okay, every year, but there's money in transit from the state that has to get recorded. So that was only $1,400 there. And then we had an entry to record the accrued payroll at the end of the year. Now, that was a more substantial amount. It was for approximately, what it did, it hit expenses, various expense accounts like payroll for about $50,000. And in various funds, general, street funds. And the reason for that entry, I think Peter normally would have made that entry, but somehow it got missed or something like that. Is that
Thank you.
correct, Peter? I think that
Yeah,
was,
that's correct. Just forgot to click the box, so.
yeah, that's all. It was a very common mistake. You have to check a box or something and then it happens, but that was it. So that's the entries that we had.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Any questions for Peter? All right, if none, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Ken.
you.
Mayor,
Yeah.
could I just make an observation? More, it's not a question, it's just a big thank you to Peter and the auditor for doing this work. And to me, it just shows, just how healthy we are financially as a city. And the fact that, even though nearly $750,000 is an eye-watering number, it's not as eye-watering as the year prior, which tells me we're doing a better job of actually deploying the taxpayers' dollars into projects and into infrastructure, which I think folks expect us to do with their tax dollars. So I'm really pleased to see that we are starting to get things going. We're starting to take care of some deferred maintenance, and we're still incredibly healthy and continue to have these surpluses, but it feels like we're getting on the right track in terms of actually getting some of this capital out into the roads and parks, and it feels good. So thank you, Peter, for stewarding that.
No problem.
Anyone else? All right, Peter, thank you.
Yep.
Peter.
Thank
All
you.
right. And
Thank
we're
you.
on
you.
to 6B, the AT&T lease. Ryan?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I think it's best to have our attorney, Jake Whitty, who is with us this afternoon, to lead us into this conversation. Thank you so much.
So our office has been negotiating this tower structure lease agreement, which I believe was included in your packet with AT&T. And after several months of negotiation, I think we've arrived at essentially the substantive terms of the agreement. There's still a little bit that needs to be figured out, which we'll discuss later today. But the substance of the agreement is in a place where both my office and AT&T are in agreement. I don't know if there's specific questions that you'd like to get in. I'll just kind of give you a brief overview. Obviously, the Mount Baldhead Tower is a very, very unique site, and there are a lot of special considerations that have to go into that. We think the lease document that's in front of you reflects that, not just those unique considerations, but also kind of the special sensitivities of the site. The lease agreement, I don't know how much detail you want. It's a long and very dense document.
Yeah.
So looking for. some
I know
feedback.
we've all had a chance to read through it as best we
Maybe we can
could.
do questions and then
I'm happy to.
one of the questions is, hey, can you go on a lengthy narrative and explain? I'll consider it, but otherwise,
Scott,
are
did
there,
you want to say something?
Thank you, Mayor. I can only speak for myself. For my part, I'll save my questions for closed session.
okay.
Ryan, did you have anything?
Yeah, just, I mean, for clarity, for anyone who's in the audience,
Which I don't think.
or for those who come back and watch the video. So we're gonna go into closed session, but on a very narrow point, right? Talk about like the dollar amount.
Mhm.
But everything else, and as far as the lease goes, is being very, very transparent. If you recall, you did request that the city reach out to a consultant to help us with the appraisal for the lease amount. So we'll discuss that in closed session. But everything else, I mean, after months of back and forth with AT&T, and I mean, this firm has been great to work with because they've just been super patient with us. Because we are a difficult customer, but they also have a financial interest, right? So let's not, I'm not a fool. So, it's a mutual relationship, but it's going well. So all that to say, there's been a ton of back and forth. Our legal firm has done great. They've had experience across the state with other leases very similar to this. And so I feel like we're in a good position to go into a closed session to talk about the dollar amount. But if there's anything you want to talk about in open session and as far as like the lease negotiation, this is not your last opportunity to talk about this, but this is a good start. I know it's a lot of information, but this is the time to do it.
Does anyone have any questions that you want to talk about that doesn't have to do with the dollar amount?
Well, if you want to qualify it, Mayor, that's fine. I think I'd prefer to ask the question in closed session because it refers to a disclosure, so.
That's fine.
Thanks.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Otherwise, we can move on to the next item, which is the Dune Ridge update. If we want to just briefly talk about why we're going into closed session.
Mr. Woody is still at the.
Yeah, so there are, there's been an order issued by the Court of Appeals, not a final order, but it's something that probably bears updating the council about. And then we also received some correspondence from Dune Ridge that we'd be happy to discuss in closed sessions.
All right.
Nothing
that
else
sounds
to add
good.
to open sessions there.
Okay.
Yeah, so Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So we do list these items in the open session just to let the public know that we are still discussing them. And then, yeah, there's obviously things that we can't discuss with ongoing litigation.
Sure.
So we go into closed session, but we do want the public to know that certain things have come up. So we just want to
Good.
put them on notice.
Good. Thank you. All right. With that, we do have an opportunity for another public comment session, but I don't believe anybody is in the room and no one is online, right, Jamie?
Yep, that's me.
Okay. All right. So at this point, I would like someone to make a motion to go into closed session for the first item. If someone could take that, please.
I make a motion to move into a closed session pursuant to MCL 15.268H to discuss a confidential written legal opinion regarding a potential lease agreement with AT&T.
I'll
Yep.
second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Is this a voice vote? Roll call?
Anderson,
Yes.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gardner, Muncy.
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. And now on to the closed session. I need a motion for the Dune Ridge update.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Make a motion to move into closed session pursuant to MCL 15.28E and H to discuss a confidential written legal opinion regarding the ongoing lawsuit with Dune Ridge SA, LP.
Second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. And if we could do a roll call?
Anderson,
Yes.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gardner, Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Do we have to do anything else as far as getting back into open session?
No.
Okay. Correspondence, did we have any? Council comments? So, Holly, if we could start on your end.
Nothing for me.
All right, Russ,
No comment.
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Scott,
Happy New Year to all.
great.
Just real quick, a real great colleague of mine, a business owner for many years and who served with the Interurban for over 30 years. Maria Muha has passed away, owned Framing and Friends. She served with me my last 5 years on board there and was a wonderful person. And she is will be greatly missed. So just wanted to say that.
Logan. Okay. And I don't have anything at this time, so if I could have a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Adjourn. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Gregory, did you hear that Nick Capoletti bought